This is the Fifth Estate winning headlines, your media police post. Brought to you by the Fort Hall School of Government, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. But we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 16th of October 2019, and I am 2J.
I am JM.
And I am GK, and in case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Star, senators go after 10 governors in graft war. In the Standard, how we denied Raila PM post. And in the Daily Nation, MCAs take home up to 25,000 shillings per day.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have a mouthful.
Interesting.
Here.
Yes. All right,
So here, senators are going after 10 governors in a graft war.
Yeah.
So the context here is the Public Investment Accounts Committee is going back to 2014 audit reports, 2014, 2015.
That's so
and
crazy.
they've found that there's some malpractices, some irregularities with how governors may have spent their money.
Yeah.
So there's 10 current governors and 7 former governors who they're asking to be investigated.
Yeah. I find it quite interesting that they're going back in time
Yes.
to find governors from however many years ago to claim,
Yeah, and who was supposed to be doing this job all those many
It
years ago,
sounds
right?
suspicious, doesn't it?
It does.
In light of the stories that came out 2 weeks ago, I
Exactly.
would say this is dog whistling.
Yes. So 2
Yeah.
weeks ago, they were accused of asking for bribes
Yes.
from people who are being investigated in order for them to give favorable reports.
Absolutely. Or
So
to
this
close
could
certain matters.
this could be now next level form of rent seeking.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you do me, I do you.
Yeah, I think the senators need to focus on what their job is,
Yes.
not going after governors looking for extra money, but
Exactly. Well, we have a 3-part criteria here that we use to break down the headlines. We ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And it is thoughtful or just plain lazy.
yeah. I think as much as you guys are saying that this is a continuation of last week,
Yeah.
it makes this
A few
story look
weeks ago.
even more suspicious.
Yes. May we toss?
I think
toss it.
we toss, yeah.
Yes. So in the Standard, how we denied Raila the PM post.
Yes, and so this is an interview conducted by the Standard of the former Comptroller of State House,
Yes.
Matere Keriri.
Yes.
And so he talks about his time at State House and how they were accused of being part of the Mount Kenya Mafia that refused to allow Raila and his wing of the coalition back in 2002
Yes.
from getting into government with Kibaki.
Yeah. By stalling the MOU at the time.
Precisely, while Kibaki was in hospital.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what? I like this man. He reminded me of the incident with late Lucy Kibaki.
Kibaki.
Yes, when they had this tiff and it also engineered his falling out,
Absolutely,
right?
2004.
But it also reminded me of gatekeepers. So there's a book we've done
yes.
on this table before, and it was, there are people who surround the president who make sure that, no nonsense gets to him.
Precisely.
And only valuable things.
Yeah,
sort of
and so we're
gets
saying
him.
that he was one of those gatekeepers.
He was one of those
He was a
gatekeepers.
very effective one.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he ignored law number 19 of the 48 laws of power.
He sure did.
Law number 19 says,
Yes.
know who you are dealing with.
Yes.
Do not offend the wrong person.
Yes,
Yeah.
and he offended Lucy in this case.
Yeah, he offended Lucy, and it's all in there. How he stopped her from visiting Kibaki in hospital.
Exactly.
And that just
It led to his downfall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I do give the
Anyway.
Standard props for a strong headline.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
did this again. This was the same as yesterday. Strong
Yeah.
headline yesterday, strong headline today.
Yeah.
But I do wonder where's this headline coming
Where
from.
is it coming from?
Yeah, it just seems a little
Maybe
bit.
it's a bit of a dry week for them, and
Possibly.
this is a throwback,
Yeah.
which Kenyans love throwbacks, especially when they're political.
Yeah, and maybe there's a connection
So,
to some of
it's a
the
good one.
cartoons we may discuss later.
I think we'll put it in the pocket bay.
I agree.
Put it in the
parking.
parking.
Good headline so
In
far.
the Daily Nation, MCAs take home up to 25,000 per day. What does that work out to? I don't. So it seems like a lot.
It's quite a bit.
It's
because
a lot of money.
They give the example that in Narok, for example,
Yes.
last financial year, they were taking home about 330K.
Yes.
This financial year, it has more than doubled to about 770K.
Wow.
Absolutely.
It's quite insane.
Yes.
And so in some instances, they say that they're making 3 times their salary. And this is only through allowances.
Yes.
This is not
Yeah.
through their salary.
Yeah.
So, of course, they're being called out by a lot of people
Yeah.
that they're more interested in, lining their pockets than
Yeah.
they are with doing their jobs as MCAs.
As MCAs.
Still, I ask the question. question. What does an MCA do?
Absolutely,
I
right?
don't know.
And can we really afford these political structures,
No,
guys?
we
Let me
cannot.
ask, as a young emerging country,
Yes.
can we really? I think we need to evaluate some of these structures. Things like governors shouldn't even be elected; they should be appointed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even MCAs should be trimmed down.
Yeah, we
Honestly.
have too many MCAs.
Well, the thing is, the MCAs are the closest person to the ground for an average citizen, because they're the person who you should go.
You know what question I'm going to ask next?
Who is my MCA?
Who is your MCA? do you know your MCA?
For privacy purposes, I will keep that to myself.
And we need to do a value for money audit.
Yeah,
on
definitely
these people.
value for money, but also, yeah.
I think that if we have teachers and nurses, doctors saying that they are not making enough money,
Yes.
I think that we need to reevaluate giving money to MCAs whose job we cannot even understand.
Yes, but like we've said on the table previously, when we enacted or promulgated the new constitution, we essentially had an invoice for this country, and this is what you have to pay out.
Yeah.
Even with it.
I think that we tossed this headline.
We tossed it?
Yeah.
So that leaves us with the Standard as our winning headline.
Yes.
Onto the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a 3-part criteria that we use. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or is it dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy?
Ozone in the Star.
So in the Star, we have a caricature of the president holding a bin, which is written labeled state jobs, and you've got a very beautiful looking Mary Wambui in there.
With signature headpiece.
So this is basically saying that he has recycled her from the political dustbin back there that we can see into, and given her a state appointment.
I like that it says paper, plastic, and politicians.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I thought it was a very humorous cartoon.
Yeah, I think it's good. I don't give Ozone props much anymore, but I think that this is a fantastic cartoon.
It's a good one.
Yes.
But I think we put it in the parking bin.
While we look at the rest,
While we look at the rest. All right, this is the Standard. Sorry about that.
Sorry, we have Kaso. So it's an opinion piece one. So we're still talking about Eliud Kipchoge. So he's drawn and breaking the record, Ineos 159. And then in the back it says, cough, cough. Okay, you can stop running. You've proven your point. To this, I say, don't stop running.
Yeah, don't, exactly.
Keep proving your point,
You did a great job. I think you were making the point earlier that you don't think people really understand what it takes to run 42 kilometers
that fast.
in 2 hours.
Precisely.
It's not possible.
And this is why we still deserve to be talking about him.
Exactly.
I mean, running a kilometer at about 2 minutes and 40 seconds on average, that is ridiculous. Your treadmill can't even go that fast.
Exactly.
It couldn't be.
I was looking at a map. That's like running from the center of Nairobi to Thika. It takes a car about 1 hour. If you take the scenic route, it's about 2 hours. Can you do that in 2 hours?
Not happening. Can we toss Kaso?
Yes, we do though.
Being a bit
negative.
And the final cartoon.
Oh, this was funny as well. So we have DJ Uhuru Kenyatta, DJ UK, with a beautiful afro, and it says Uhuru loves the golden oldies. And then you have old school records. One says Julius Karangi Twist. The other one, the one that he's holding, which is the current one, Mary Wambui. And then the last one was the Mudauras album 6 and Mudi Awori Blues Volume 6. Very, very funny.
Very funny, The context, of course, I'm not sure how old Mary Wambui is, but she's a bit older. She's a former MP. Mudi Awori was appointed as the Sports, Arts and Social Development chairperson at the age of 90. You just have a lot of elderly people who are being brought back into the government.
He has an affinity for pensioners.
Oh, wow.
But listen, guys, I mean, a lot of people, he's come under a lot of fire for appointing Mary Wambui. Because it's youth employment or is it, it is the National Authority, Employment Authority, and, people are gearing it towards the youth and they think it should be a younger, more dynamic person. However, I feel like these appointments normally have a political capital attached to them. There's a reason he didn't wake up and just say, Mary Wambui.
And this is where politicians go to retire. In state corporations. And in any political system, any dispensation, you'll always have places where politicians are taking to retire. So that they can get a soft landing.
But the question is, should they be retiring in institutions that are so critical for the development of the country?
So perhaps they should be more strategic in how they decide who they take where. So like sports and National Employment Authority,
those are critical.
Maybe those are better off for younger people.
She's
or closer to the future.
Listen, Mary may offer us some wisdom that we have not yet thought of.
In English.
And listen, she was...
English doesn't matter. That's not a qualification for leading.
Listen, she was very instrumental when Kanu was coming up. And she's been a career sort of politician.
Yeah,
it's just that the other things sort of overshadow what she has actually done, right?
Maybe fair enough, let's give her a chance. Right?
Give her a chance.
And this is a fantastic cartoon,
So
very tasteful.
Can we toss those and keep
Just
this?
for that passion.
Absolutely.
Oh,
The
fantastic.
humor is really
So
good.
Ozone, 2J, say it.
Okay, Ozone. No, this is Ndula.
Oh, Ndula, sorry.
Victor Ndula gives us our
Sorry.
cartoon.
And what is our final thought?
Yes. And now our final thought, in continuation in the run-up to Mashujade. Today we're going to look at a book entitled Histories of the Hanged by David Anderson, written in 2005. Interestingly, the book we did yesterday, Britain's Gulag, was also written in 2005.
Okay.
So 2005 was a rough year for the British
There was
government
an awakening.
in terms of the exposure they received for what happened in Kenya.
Yeah.
So what we've looked at this the past few days is the heroes surrounding the Mau Mau struggle. And a lot of the struggle has been largely anonymous. And we say that leave for the generals and the heroes that we celebrate. Your Dedan Kimathis, your Stanley Mavenges, and the Kapenguria Six. But what this book asks us to look at is some of the food carriers, the recruiters, the oath administrators, the fundraisers, enforcers, and message couriers, and just the ordinary foot soldiers who were in the forest. And he says in this book that those people have remained largely nameless and forgotten. And when we speak of Mashujade, I think it's important that we think about the little hero.
Yes,
the big hero is important, but who are these little guys who ensured that the Mau Mau struggle was successful? And so, in this book, he covers the story of the little Mau Mau people during the Mau Mau trials, and he gives a lot of detail and context to what was happening at that time. And if I could just read a little something small.
Sure.
He says in the book that between April 1953 and December 1956, the Special Emergency Courts tried a total of 2,600 Kikuyus on capital charges relating to the Mau Mau offenses. 1,200 trials took place, and 1,574 were convicted and sentenced to hang over this period. And he says that this is very interesting at a time when the British government was contemplating the abolition of hanging. And so he talks about how the Germans preferred to use an axe, the French liked to use the guillotine, but the British liked the spectacle of hanging people. And so they brought that institution to Kenya where they would round people up and hang those Mau Mau offenders. And so the irony we've spoken about of the colonial government was that you have this juxtaposition of their disrespect for the rights and humanity of the Mau Mau, while at the same time keeping these very meticulous and detailed notes of the trials that took place. And so you ask, what gave rise to these Mau Mau trials? And there's this one instance that he outlines in the book, and it's called the Larry Massacre of 1953. So at this point, we're into the second year of the state of emergency. So on the 26th of March, the Home Guard, who we said before were Kikuyus who were rallied to fight against the Mau Mau, they found a body in the middle of this Larry space. And they did not know what was happening. So what had happened is that they had been lured away to find this body to leave the Larry township unmonitored. So they turn around and they find that this place is completely on fire. And the Mau Mau had lured them away so they could go and kill loyalists. And so this completely scares the British government, and they have to do something in retaliation. And so what they do is that Governor Baring, he sends a proposal to London to create this emergency court to hear cases relating only to emergency powers. So at this time, the Supreme Court could not hear enough of the Mau Mau cases, so they create this special court. And so in this court, he demands that the legal process is dramatically accelerated. He says that there should be no appeal process and that execution should happen 24 hours after conviction.
Wow.
Crazy stuff. And so Baring demanded that if the government was not firm, that the legal system would collapse and another massacre would ensue. And one member of the colonial government was quoted saying that in the present circumstances, it would be better to hang an innocent African occasionally than to tolerate a lengthened legal process.
Yikes.
Yeah, and so this book covers a lot. That's why it's called The Histories of the Hanged.
Yeah,
so it had a lot of the small stories of these people, how the community members would come to testify against their neighbors, relatives, friends, and how they were eventually hanged.
Wow, gosh. So I read, I think, chapter 5 of it, and he brings us into Nairobi. So I think a lot, during the week, we've been talking about the reservations, Central Province, the camps that were on the outer outer skirts,
Yeah.
right? Outskirts, sorry. So here we're talking about Operation Anvil. So Nairobi residents, a lot of them had come, so Africans had come to work in Nairobi but could only live in Eastlands, what we now know as Eastlands and all those estates. But it was divided into many shanty towns, Bahati, Pumwani, Karioko, Gorofa, there was a lot of them. And so 1954, 24th April, at 4 in the morning, the armed forces, about 20,000 of them, from the British forces, the police, the home guards, everybody comes to Nairobi. And they close off the entrances to all these shanty towns or estates, right? And the idea behind this was they were supposed to identify all those residing illegally in the city. So Nairobi at the time was going through an influx of people coming to look for better work, for jobs, and all that stuff. And a lot of them happened to be Kikuyus from neighboring Kiambu, Murang'a, Nyeri, but they were very semi-skilled, they were like not so skilled, highly skilled, right? And so each Kikuyu male was required at that point to have carried 5 separate documents. So an employment registration, history of employment card, your ID card, your poll tax receipt, and a Kikuyu special tax receipt, right?
Kikuyu special tax.
Yes, if you're Kikuyu, you had a different. So now they decided, okay, so if you, firstly, as you're going through the screening in these estates, if you are not Kikuyu, you are allowed to go. However, if you're Kikuyu and you had any of these and didn't have any of these, you were sort of sent straight to Langata, which is what the first holding camp. Then they detained anyone suspected to be Mau Mau. Now this is where it gets interesting. He tells us of these people who are called Gekonia. So in Swahili, it's a gunia. In Kikuyu, it's a Gekonia, which is like a gurney bag, right? A gurney,
over your head,
that you put over your head. And these are the people who would nod and say, are you a Mau Mau or are you not? And a lot of people were detained based on
this person who was identifying them.
These informants. And these informants actually had resided with them. They had been recruited before by the...
And that's why they covered their heads, so you wouldn't know that it was your friend
who had actually snitched on you, right? So these testimonies condemned many to these detention camps. By the time this was ending, Operation Anvil ended a month later, and it detained about 20,000. Right? And this is an interesting story. I'll be quick. So there were some women who decided that they would return voluntarily to Central Province. And so as they're boarding the buses and the trains, the European women and the Asian women in solidarity decided to come and give them tea and snacks. But the Kikuyu women took the snacks and threw them back on them. And they were singing these songs of protest. And the idea there was we were going to go back to Central Province, but we were going to go back with our dignity in place. So Operation Anvil ends a month later. But the crazy thing is that because they had detained a lot of the workforce who were majorly Kikuyu, the businesses also suffered. Right? But on the flip side, the minimum wage goes up because for a long time, there had been an influx of supplies of workers. Now that there were less workers, price goes up. So that was a positive side of Operation Anvil, but still.
But there's one more story you must tell us.
Which one is that?
The one about the tie ties.
The tie ties. So what had happened was in Nairobi, a lot of the Kikuyus who had come, like I said, didn't have very high skills. But the ones who would come from Luo Nyanza or Coast Province were very, clever clerks. They had read, they could type, they could do all that stuff. So they dressed better.
Absolutely.
And so they were nicknamed by the Mau Mau in Nairobi as tie ties. So in Kikuyu, there's no Kikuyu word for tie, so they say tie. But so it's tie ties. So one famous tie was actually killed. His name is Tom Botella. He was walking home from work, and he was a member of the KAU, the Kenya Africa Union, and he refused Mau Mau to join. And he opposed violence and wanted to use a constitutional method towards independence. And they took him out.
And so he is the man after whom the estate in Eastlands and Botella
there you go.
is named after.
Yes.
I'll just very quickly talk about, so you took us to Nairobi.
Yes.
I'll take us to central Kenya, to the theatre of war during this time. Right? And chapter 6 is a story on the Mau Mau and in particular General China and how he was successful in some of those battles that they had,
Yeah.
right, in 1952, 1953. And, it's a remarkable story. It's a story of courage, of brilliance, but also of brutality on the part of Mau Mau, right? They had their fair share of successes, but they had to be brutal at it.
Yeah.
In particular, General China was one of the top generals in the Mau Mau.
Yeah.
He was also known as Warohio Itote. A fine mind. He was trained by the military here in the King's African Rifles, and was taken out to Asia to fight alongside the British in the Second World War. Yeah. So he got military experience in Burma, right, fighting the Japanese in the 40s. But then he came back and he was demobilized. And so in the late 40s, early 50s, he was actually one of those Kikuyus who migrated to Nairobi. Yeah. So he comes to Nairobi, but he doesn't really have any formal skills. So he's a little frustrated. Yeah. And then 1952, the emergency breaks out, and he decides, okay, this is now the time for me to go back to Nyeri, where he was from. And so he goes back there and he organizes cohorts, and he uses his military experience to basically organize the Mau Mau. Yeah. Nice. And so he set up command structures, he maintained discipline, he drilled the recruits, he liaised even diplomatically with elders in the community.
That's so interesting.
So that they could keep good relations, because they needed the community at all times.
Support them and protect them.
Feed them and all of that. Yeah. And so he did a pretty brilliant job at that. 1953 was actually his best year. But first of all, some of the deception strategies that he used. He was a master at this as well. So he would set up mock camps on the fringes of the forests in Mount Kenya to delude the enemy. And they worked for quite a while, right? Yeah. The whole of 53 into 54, this is partly how he survived. Yeah. And he was also famous for the clever use of women in combat. So he would deploy women and girls to charm and even seduce the opponent, right? Yes. And they would basically set up ambushes where they would isolate somebody from the home guard, and then snatch their weapons and that kind of thing.
Clever thinking.
And so in 53, he successfully directed a wave of attacks in European farms in Nyeri, Nanyuki, and everywhere he went, he would gather weapons, he would oath laborers, and he would also recruit freedom fighters.
Wow, powerful stuff.
And very many attacks he carried out in 53, but also a few brutal ones that he did on some of the English and European settlers. Yeah.
Kudos to him.
And that's why the Europeans were very, very relieved in 1954 to capture him. Yeah. Eventually, he had some sort of bargain agreement with the British, and he ended up revealing, information.
Oh, things. Oh, he was a turncoat in the end.
A bit of a turncoat, but I would actually say a pragmatist. Yeah. Because
for survival.
He saw it. Look, he saw that the war was lost. Yeah. Right? And by about 54, 55, the war was actually lost, to be honest. But so he did his part, and then eventually I think he was pragmatic, and he was rewarded. Yeah. So in the 60s, in Jomo's first cabinet, he was appointed as a sector commander in NYS. Later went on to become deputy director of NYS.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Thank you. So on a day where we had a winning headline from The Standard and a winning cartoon from Dula of the Daily Nation, I want to leave you with this. This book has showed us the less famous faces of the struggle for independence. But it has also been a revelation of how cruel human beings can be towards each other, especially when they don't understand each other or they don't care to. Yes. Right? So I wish you would subscribe to our channel and also find us on TV. We are on GoTV, Star Times, and Pang Free to Air. Have a good evening.